Welcome to the 13 Comics of Halloween.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the 13 Comics of Halloween. Drag it out.
I like you held that one.
Yeah, you gotta switch it up, So this one, we're doing a creepy issue number 1. And this one can be found if you get like they actually have the whole volume 1 of Creepy like bound. I think it's the first 5 issues. And Creepy was a magazine from the 70s that was trying to bring back like the Tales from the Crypt era from the 50s. So it's got really good artists, really good writers. They're trying to be scary. It's a magazine, so they didn't have to follow the comics code. So like that's really big because if you're a comic, you had to follow the comics code. You couldn't have scary stuff, couldn't have horror. This pretty much was like knocked it out of the park first issue. Right away, it's like sets the tone. The cover has like all the creepy characters like Frankenstein and like ghouls and skeletons and stuff, and they're all sitting around Uncle Creepy, who's reading the first issue of Creepy magazine. So in this one, unlike the Tales from the Crypt guy where you have the Crypt Keeper, in this one you have Uncle Creepy, who's a very good creepy character.
He's very creepy looking.
And so right away, first thing we get is the first story. It's called Voodoo. And we see this great artwork by Joe Orlando. And it's like this lady, and she's like, it was weird because it's like this white lady in, I don't know, Haiti or wherever these people are.
Yeah.
And she's like learning all these voodoo stuff, and she's dancing around with all the locals. And she's like super into voodoo. And she like, even so much, she's bringing like shrunken heads back to her home and like, hey, honey, check this out. And he's like, what the fuck?
It's like, why do you keep bringing this stuff?
Why are you bringing like these weird chicken bones and like shrunken heads home? And he's basically like, forget this. I'm done with you. And like she leaves and she's like, you'll be sorry for this. And he's like, I hope she never comes back. And then like all of a sudden that night, actually she leaves and it's like a couple days. And
he like goes out and kind of parties and does his own thing.
He's like, finally, I get to like leave my wife. She left me, so I can go fuck around or whatever. I'm
gonna live it up.
Yeah. And then he's like living the bachelor life. And then all of a sudden one night he wakes up and he hears like, Frank,
come to me.
Yeah. And so like he's kind of compelled. He's like walking like a zombie out into the middle of the woods. And then he like appears and all of a sudden like in this like opening and he sees Sylvia, his wife, and she's like, Frank, it's time for my revenge. Like, because I saw all the shit you've been doing and you don't believe in voodoo, but you'll believe now. And then she tries to attack him with a machete and he like ducks her. And when she does, she like hits the machete into a tree stump and then she falls over him and she kills herself on the tree stump, on the machete.
Machete, yeah.
So like cuts her own head off with the machete. And it doesn't show it super graphic, but it's, it's pretty obvious what happened.
Yeah.
And then he's like, whoa, that's crazy. And it's like horrified. He's like running. He's like, oh my God, he's like trying to get out of there. And all of a sudden he hears Frank again, like someone calling Frank. And he's like, no, it can't be.
I saw her die.
Yeah, I saw her. And he keeps running and running. And then all of a sudden her like shrunken head body appears. So I don't know how she shrunk her own head.
I don't know if she shrunk her own head or she just got an extra head to put on that was shrunken, but it was creepy. It was creepy,
and then it like grabs him and strangles him. So it's like now he was thoroughly convinced of the voodoo being real, and so she walks away with his head, I believe, and so like she rips his head off basically. Yeah. It's super creepy. And then
H2O World.
Yeah, this one. This is the only one out of this whole comic. I'm like, why is this here? It's basically like these two scuba divers who can talk underwater with respirators in the mouth, which I thought was weird. Like they have goggles like normal, but they don't have like talking face masks, but they talk to each other under the water. So it's weird.
Yeah, especially because like they're in like bikini and like swim trunks too, so they're not even like well-equipped divers. They just happen to have the breathing apparatus.
Yeah, and so they go down, and he's like, oh, there's like a... Basically, it's like Atlantis or something. They're like, oh, there's this... He heard about this hidden place where there's like basically buildings that are like made of diamond, and then like they reflect the water, so you can't find them unless you know what to look for or something. So they find this city, and then like they talk to the king, And the king's like, "Hey, what are you doing here?" And then they're like, "Oh, it was a misunderstanding." And then like, there wasn't much going on.
He basically kind of they's like, for one, the only thing that was kind of weird was like the people are like, "Hey, it's okay, we're gonna tell people about you and it'll be fine." And the king's like, "No, you're not telling anybody about us." And that's where I thought it was gonna go. And the people are like, "It's okay. After World War III, we completely like we're understanding and like okay with all races now."
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh."
Yeah, that was they had World War III.
And the he's kind of like half aquatic fish guy, half humanoid, and he's like, "Well, we had wars too, but like we learned to evolve from that, and that's why we're hidden now." He's like, and only some of us like because of our wars like look like humanoid-esque. Other ones are like really like creepy and like scary looking still.
Yeah, and then those ones come out, and the girl gets scared, and then she like faints underwater, and then that's like the end of it.
Yeah, and they're like, "We're just gonna take him back up, and they won't remember any of this. We'll like erase their memory somehow." And that's the end.
It was weird. It's a weird one. Don't recommend that one, but all the rest of them in this are solid.
Yeah.
And this is kind of like Tales from the Crypt, where there's like 5 short stories in each one. And I thought these ones are really well paced and really well done too. Yeah. As far as like the length of them and everything. So
I really like this next one.
Yeah, the next one's called Vampires Fly at Dusk. So obviously we got vampires going on. It's like, I don't know if it's modern day or not, but it's definitely like in Hungary or something.
Yeah, it's some island. They say it's kind of like there's a small group of people live on it. It's not like crazy populated, but
right. And there's this husband and wife that live on the top of this hill, and there's been vampire deaths going around, and this husband always like he's got a weird schedule. He only works at night, and then he like sleeps during the day, and it's so weird. And the wife like has had to learn to live with that. So like she's like, it's been so weird getting used to your schedule. And like he brings her juice in the morning when she wakes up, but the morning is after dusk.
Yeah.
And then so like she's like, it's so weird. And then basically she hears of these tales going around because some like cop comes up to the house to like question him about what's been going on, because ever since they moved here,
yeah, weird things have been happening.
Yeah, weird things have been.
And I like this because he's like, "Oh yeah, we'll just talk to any of the people who help the servants and stuff." And the servants are like, he goes up to his little room tower thing, and there's only one door in and out, and we never see him come out until later when he's done with his work. So
yeah,
he's
so
definitely not doing
leaves.
anything.
Yeah, we never see him leave. So then they're like, okay, well the wife is like, okay, well it's all solved then, I guess he's fine. And then like the next night he's like, all right, honey, I'm going up to my study. Why don't you go listen to some records? And then so she's like, oh, these records suck or whatever. And then she's like, what is this, Jefferson Starship bullshit or whatever? And so then she's like sick of that. So she goes up to his study where he's supposed to be working, and it's empty. And then he's like, these books. Or she's looking around. She's like, these books, they're all about vampires.
All of the books.
All of them.
And it's a huge study. There's like hundreds of books.
Yeah. And then she keeps looking around, and she starts finding like clothing that's got blood stains all over it. And then she's like standing there looking at all this stuff. And then one of the bookcases opens up like a secret door. And she's like, oh my God, a secret door. I knew it.
You have been sneaking out.
Yeah, you are the vampire. And he's like, no, Elena, don't come back. You don't understand. Let me explain. And then like she runs in the room and like locks him out. And she's like, basically like trying to wait till dawn. And then she's like, I'll prove to me you're not a vampire. Like stand in front of the sunlight. And he's like, no, you don't understand. And then like, as she does that, like the sunlight comes in and it kills her because she was the vampire.
Yeah, he's like, no, you don't understand. I've been going out every night. Like he's explaining it basically as she's dying. Like, oh, I went out and like I put stuff in your juice, and that's why you got full and you never like wanted to eat the rest of your food. And oh no, and then he's like holding this ashy corpse at the end.
Yeah, because
she killed herself.
She killed herself on accident because she didn't know she was the vampire.
Yeah, it was a fun twist.
It was good. Yeah, I kind of thought something like that was going to happen, but I wasn't sure because it was so different. But it was fun, and the art was really good in it too.
Yeah.
And then
speaking of art,
we get the fantastic art by Frank Frazetta, and the story is by Larry Ivy in this one. This one stood out. I will say the art is a little bit stereotypical of native people in this. So.
Yeah, it's definitely problematic for nowadays, but for the style and like, and especially coming from him, it's
yeah. He did all the Conan stuff, so he definitely would draw more of those kind of things in that style. So,
Yeah.
but this one's called Werewolf, and it's about a big werewolf, and it's kind of more like a native myth than like an actual werewolf.
Yeah.
But apparently there's like this animal that's been killing stuff around town or around this like village, and there's a man who his name is Demon. Is his last name? Biff.
Biff.
His name is Biff Demon, which is a fantastic name, I thought. And apparently there's like he's getting information on this beast, and one of the natives is telling him like, oh, it's like this thing, and it comes out at night, and it's a werewolf, and he's like, there's no such thing as werewolves. It's bullshit. So like he goes after it with his buddy, and they're having some trouble walking through the jungle because obviously there's like snakes and shit.
Yeah, it's funny because he's going with his buddy, and his buddy's almost like the better explorer because he's like,
Yeah.
I'll protect you from that snake. Look out. Oh, look, don't go that way. Don't step that way. And he's like, what are you doing? You're trying to show me up?
Yeah, he's like,
I'm going to be the one to get the beast.
I'm Biff Demon.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of like Gaston and...
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, very much so. I don't know. I don't know what his name is.
LeFou, there you go.
LeFloof or whatever.
Yeah.
And so then they're like they're screwing around trying to like figure something out. They're like tracking the monster, and then all of a sudden they're like, look, and it's like appears right before him. And I like the art on this. It doesn't look like a stereotypical werewolf. No. It kind of looks like a panther mixed with a werewolf.
Bear,
mixed with a bear.
Man, bear, pig.
Yeah, it's a man, bear, pig.
But it looks really cool.
And so Biff shoots it a couple times, and it doesn't do anything. It doesn't go down, and it just stares at him. And he's like, what? And then it like jumps at him again, and then apparently there's like a bald patch on it or something. Like that's like a white spot.
Yeah.
And he shoots that like instinctively. And then all of a sudden, he's like, that did it. It killed it. Who would have thought? Like that was the spot, And then all of a sudden, the werewolf starts to transform into a human, and it's like, oh my God, thank you so much. This was terrible.
You broke the curse.
Yeah, you broke the curse, and thankfully you're now you get to be cursed with this. And so all of a sudden slowly Biff starts turning into this werewolf creature, and he's it says like he gets the pelt that he wanted, or whatever. So it's a great little twist on this like short story. Thought it was super fun, but yeah. And then this one was also fun. I thought this one was like weird and silly, but also like fun to read because I had no idea where it was going.
Yeah.
But the next story is called Bewitched, and the art was really good in this too. But basically, their husband, and he's like, "What's all this fuss about witches? This is all bullshit."
Yeah, he finds this like book in their house. He's like, "Who is this? Is your grandma's or something?" She's like, "Yeah, she used to tell me these stories." And he's like, that's phooey. Like, witches aren't real. Like, look at this. I'm reading all this stuff in here. Look, it even tells you how to kill a witch. I'm just going to kill a witch for fun and show you they're not real. Ha ha ha.
Yeah. And so it's like, basically it says, hey, if you go by holly branches and you burn them on a hill, a witch will die. So he like goes around like announcing this in town, like talking to his friends in the middle of a diner and stuff. And as he's telling his friends this, like there's all these old ladies sitting at a table and they're like, what did he say about holly and what burning witches or whatever? And so he does it. He burns some holly, and then like he's like, there, finally I did it. And then like you hear a scream of an old lady go like, ah, and he's like, what the fuck? And he gets like scared from that spot. And then like everywhere he goes now, there's all these old ladies like looking around and following him and stuff. And then he starts having weird dreams. The dreams are crazy. It's like I thought this was really cool. It's kind of psychedelic.
Yeah.
Like and this is all in black and white, so being psychedelic's hard to show without like those crazy colors. This had like really good art that showed like crazy psychedelic, like time web loops and all this stuff. It was pretty cool. And then like he wakes up in like dinosaur times and he's about to get killed, and then he wakes up for real. He's like, oh my God. And then he's like, it feels like I've been bewitched. Like, what's going on? Feels like I got stabbed with a knife. And then like his daughter comes in and is like, hey Dad, check out this cool doll that some old lady gave us all. And apparently
he gave that. So she's like, look, I got a doll and it looks just like you. And look, she's like poking it. And she gave me all these pins. And he's like, they're like, you figure out, oh God, it's like a voodoo doll. And then she takes out the pin and he's like, oh, that must have been it. And then he starts hurting again. She's like, yeah, all the girls in town got him. They came to like our little brownie Girl Scout meeting, and They gave them to all the girls in town. They all look just like you.
Yeah. And so basically he keeps getting stabbed now by like all these girls who are poking clothes into this doll or whatever that looks like him. So I don't know if he dies or if he just is like horribly,
he just has to live with this the rest of his life. But
yeah.
It was fun.
Yeah, that was interesting. And then this, is this the last one?
No, there's two more.
Okay.
The success story is next, which that one's kind of fun. It's like basically a comic book writer is like, this happened to me and I'm going to like turn it into a horror story because it's fucked up.
Yeah, but this one is like, there's a comic book writer who's not very good. He wants to be a comic book writer, but he's just not. Everything he does gets passed on and never good enough. His art sucks. His writing sucks. His inking sucks. So what he does is someone says like, hey, you should just like pay someone to do that, like each thing separately, and then take credit for all of them, and they will never know. Like they'll never talk to each other or anything. And so he's like, oh, it's a great idea. Like if I pay someone to write it and then I give it to an artist, that script, and say it's mine, and then the artist draws it, and then I give that art to an inker and say that art's mine to the inker, then no one will ever know that I'm not the guy. And so he basically gets like really famous from this script. And then all of a sudden, like a couple months later, once he's like basically he's been like really hounding these guys to get shit done. And eventually like they meet up because they like know each other in the business, and they're like, hey man, this comic strip's killing me. And they're like, wait, what comic strip? And they're like, that's the one I'm on. Wait, you're writing it? I'm drawing it? And he's inking it? Like, what the fuck? And so they confront the guy who's stealing all their work from them, and he shoots them all. He just like, finally. That's why I got you guys. That's why I was writing you so hard these last couple months, because I needed to make sure like I'd have enough stuff, before I found new
right
artists
out and get some money. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he like shoots them, kills them, throws them in the ocean, like off a dock. And then like, before he can like find any of the news strips, because like basically the guy who like is hiring him is like, hey, my son wants an original drawing from you, like can you draw this for him? And he's like, oh shit, I don't know how to draw any of this stuff. And so he's like looking back in his back catalog of some drawings, and right as he's doing that, you see three like zombie slash like water zombies. I don't know what the fuck they are. They come in and burst in, and they like basically murder him. they draw a picture for the guy, and the guy's like, oh my god, what happened to his office? And it's like, oh well, here's that picture he said he was going to draw me. And then it's like, wait a second, it's
not drawn in blood, or it's not drawn in ink, it's drawn in blood.
And that's so they hacked him to death. And
somebody got something out in this comic.
Yeah, for sure.
For their personal feelings.
For sure, Archie Goodwin was mad at someone for stealing his work, I'm assuming. And then we get the last story called Pursuit of the Vampire.
I think this is my favorite.
And this was another vampire story, which I was kind of like, oh, putting two vampire stories in one comic, that's interesting. But this one was totally different, so it was cool. You get like the standard like townsfolk looking for vampires. There's a guy who seems to know what he's talking about, and he's like, there's a vampire over here. We're going to kill him with a stake through the heart and stuff.
And the head of the town comes down, and he's like, oh, we're supposed to be meeting over here. The Burgermeister of this town, I guess it's like a German thing, which, little quick side note, I didn't know Burgermeister was like a real thing. I just remembered it from that Santa Claus, the Santa Claus, the old animation from like the 50s.
Yeah.
Burgermeister, Meisterburger. And I was like, so I had to look this up. I was like, oh, so Burgermeister is a real thing. It was like,
and it means like you're the head of
head of the town, or the mayor, basically.
Yeah. So this Burgermeister is like trying to distract them. Like, I don't know if they'll be here tonight or whatever. And the guy's like, no, they'll show up for sure. So the main like vampire killer dude, let's say he's like the Van Helsing guy or whatever. Yeah. He's like shows up to where they should be, like in the graveyard and everything. Yeah. Of course, the vampires show up. He's like, cool, I got these stakes for him, like these wooden stakes. They go, I said stakes like meat or something, but no, these wooden stakes for them. And they go in there into the tombs or whatever, and they kill them like right away, no problem. And the townspeople are like, holy shit, they really are real. That's like, we thought, like, I don't know what they thought, but they were like surprised that the vampires were actually like real. And then, like, so the Burgermeister and like the Van Helsing characters like walking, and he's like, it's done, but like something doesn't quite sit right.
Because these girls died recently, so someone had to turn them into vampires.
Yeah. And the Burgermeister's like, huh, that's weird, isn't it? And then like, we get them kind of talking back and forth.
It's like, how will you ever find the head vampire, though, basically?
Yeah, and he's like, well, vampires don't have reflections. And you know what? I noticed someone didn't have a reflection when we walked by the water. And then it shows the like scene he's talking about, and the Burgermeister himself does not have a reflection.
shadow.
And so he turns. And he turns. He's like, "You, the vampire, sir!" And then the Burgermeister's like, "Well, I will kill you now." And then before he can do that, the guy turns around, the Van Helsing guy, and he's like, "The greed of vampires, the bloodlust, night after night. I can't let you destroy this village. It's for myself." And he turns around and he's a werewolf.
Yeah, I thought that was fun. Like the one little overwork that I didn't really see is like they kept being like, "Oh, it's too dark. The moon isn't coming up here." He's like, we're gonna go into this mausoleum real fast and kill the vampires. Like that was the fun little twist. Is
Yes.
he was staying out of the moonlight just long enough to then be able to take on the head vampire. That was fun.
Yeah. So overall, really solid stories in this,
Yeah.
except for number 2, which was lame. But the rest of them were really good. So what would you give this one, John?
I like this one. I think a little better than the Tales from the Crypt one. So I'm gonna give this one 8.
Cool. I'm gonna give this one a 7. I like the art a lot. Gotta love Frank Frazetta.
Especially.
Gotta love the stories in this one. They're like had really good twists.
And Uncle Creepy is pretty cool for like the main guy. Like it definitely I like the Crypt Keeper, but I like the Crypt Keeper because of the HBO that I know and like.
Right.
So I think for the comic wise, I like Uncle Creepy a little more too.
Yeah, he makes more sense. But anyway, we'll see you guys on the next one.
On the next spooky one.
Bye.